Iys Holy Girasolem Iys coming. Friends, the founding of the city of Girasolem, Jerusalem, which later became to be called Rome, and which true location was later hidden. When the city of Girasolem was deceptively hidden to cover up its true identity. And when the Church of Latin then became the Universal Church, and the Church of God and Gisu, and its headquarters became the Vatican, and the Vatican City, and which had its own head, known as the Holy Father and the Pope, and a sovereign, and the Vatican City became a sovereign state. And furthermore the city of London was in England, and London was in the country of Britannia, and biblical Bethany became to be called Great Britain, and Samaria, and the city of Damascus was in Syria. Friend, there's something seriously wrong with Bible history, because it seems that many of old names for many biblical cities, which were the heritage of the people of Elu'hymn, was known as Israel, was deliberately changed and omitted, and hidden to hide their true identities. Friend, Israel has proclaimed Jerusalem as its capital in 1950 and has reaffirmed it to be their capital in 1980. By passing their laws, and basically declaring it to be theirs completely. But since the Arabs in Palestine also are claiming Jerusalem as theirs, and also many Arabs elsewhere have also laid claim to Jerusalem as theirs, now it seems that Jerusalem has become a burdensome city, because there are many Israelis and Arabs have been fighting to claim it. And today, even though the state of Israel is united in accepting it as their capital today, because of this dispute the state of Israel have opted to use the city of Tel Aviv, which is now functioning as their capital instead. Friend, even though the city of Jerusalem its religious significance, and it is regarded as a holy city to the Jews and also the Arabs and the Christian alike, and the Vatican is now the head of Christendom and Judaism, and of lately a new faction which is known as Christlam, and which is the joining of many other religions to the Church of Gisu, which is also known as the Universal Church, and the Pope is now accepting them, and making them part of the Universal Church, and also these religion would be under the sovereignty of the Pope, and also under oversight of the Vatican and Vatican City. Friends, the two sons of Ahalaba were the ones who founded the city of Jerusalem, and the origins of the city of Rome, which was before times called the city of Jerusalem, and now which is called in the modern times, the city of Jerusalem. Friends, this is what I believe, and that is this, that the sons of Ahalaba were the true founders of the city of Rome, which was before times known as Jerusalem. And friends, what I'm about to share with you is that this is the true story about the founding of the city of Rome, and the true history about the founding of the ancient city of Jerusalem, and also about how the city of Jerusalem was founded, and that it was the sons of Esau who were the true founders of the city of Rome, which is otherwise known as Jerusalem, and the eternal city, and the kingdom of Italy, and which was before times called the Holy Roman Empire. Please continue on to the reading. Thank you. Genesis chapter 36:1. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is called Edom. Genesis 36:2. And Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan, and he took Adah the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Ahalaba, and Aholah, who were the twin daughters of Anah, and Adon the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite. Genesis 36:3. And Bashemath Ishmael's daughter, whom was the sister of Nebaioth, the firstborn son of Ishmael, whom was Abraham's first son that was born to him by Hagar. Genesis 36:4. And Adah Esau's wife, whom bare to Esau Eliphaz and Bashemath. And Esau's wife also bare to him Reuel. Genesis 36:5. And Ahalaba, she bare Korah and Jerush, and Alam, who were twin boys, and whose names became well known today because the city of Jerusalem was named after them. And these two brothers were the true founders of the city of Jerusalem. And these were the sons of Esau, who were born to Esau in the land of Canaan. Genesis 36:14. And these were the twin sons of Ahalaba, who was one of the twin daughters of Adah, and Adah was one of the wives of Esau. And Aholah and Ahalaba were the daughters of Adah, who was the mother of Aholah and Ahalaba, and who also became the wives of Esau. and Aholibah and Aholah were the twin grandchildren of Anah. And who was the twin brother of Zibeon and Aholibah, and Zibeon who was the father of Adah who was Esau's wife. And Aholibah she bare to Esau, Jerush, and Elu'hym, and Korah. Genesis 36:18, and these are the sons of Aholibah Esau's wife, Duke Jerush, Duke Elu'hym, Duke Korah. These were the dukes that came from the twin sisters, Aholah and Aholibah who were granddaughters of Anah. And Adah who were the wives of Esau. Genesis 36:25, and all the dukes came from the children of Anah. And whom were the children of Adah Esau's wives, and whose sons became dukes, and one such duke was Dishon. And the dukes from Aholibah who was the granddaughter of Anah who was one of the wives of Esau. And these were all dukes. Genesis 36:41, Duke Dishon, Duke Elah, Duke Pinion, Ezekiel 23:1 Then Elu'hymn whom is the word Od and the sovereign one. Then the Od came again to me, Ezekiel with these sayings. Ezekiel 23:2, and the Od said to me, Son of man, there were two women, the daughters of one mother. Ezekiel 23:3, and they committed whoredom in Egypt. And they also committed whoredom in their youth, and it was there that their breasts were pressed, and it was there that they bruised their teats of their virginity. Ezekiel 23:4, and the names of the two sisters were Aholah the elder, and Aholibah her sister, and they were mine, and they bare sons and daughters, and thus were their names changed. Because Aholah name was changed to Samaria and also all her descendants which is of Aholah. And Jerusalem which is Aholibah became the city of Rome and also the city of Jerusalem. Friends, many people nowadays have theorized that the city of Rome was founded by the twin brothers whom were called Romulus and Remus. And this is quite a mythological story, but the story of how Jerusalem was founded is a biblical story which I consider to be more believable. The only trouble is that the Jebusites, even though they were considered Canaanites, I believe that they weren't the true founders of the city of Rome. And that the only true possible explanation is this, that the true founders were Jerush and Elu'hym. And that what I have uncovered about the history of the sons of Esau is the truth. And the facts is that the descendants of Esau were that they were the true founders of the city of Jerush and Elu'hym, and which later became to be known as the city of Rome. Friend, and what I have discovered about these cities, and that is that the biblical record states that the Jebusites, at one time were the inhabitants of Jerusalem, but the account of how they founded Jerusalem is not quite so accurate. The story of how the sons of Aholibah founded Jerusalem makes better sense, and the story about how it was both Aholibah and Aholah who were the two sisters who were whores in the biblical account, whom became known to be Samaria and Jerusalem, is quite telling. And the story about how the sons of Aholibah were the founders of Rome, but the story about the founding of the city of Jerusalem is more plausible, and it was in fact the two twin brothers who were indeed the founders of the city of Rome, which before times was the first city that was called Jerusalem. And Elu'hymn had mentioned that the two sisters, that they were equal to Samaria and Jerusalem, and that Aholah was Samaria, and that Aholibah was Jerusalem. And just like their forefathers who had a history of whoredom, so they too departed from Elu'hymn and their sons, who were the founders of Samaria and Jerusalem. And throughout the history of the children of Israel, there were always some issues with the city of Samaria and Jerusalem, and with their descendants whom were continually falling into idolatry and in departing from Elu'hymn. And it was because of their whoredoms and their idolatry of worshipping Baal, who is also called Baal-zebub, the prince of demons, and also the Lord God, and also by the name, Old Gog, which is also a name for Satan, and this was when Elu'hymn finally drew a plumb line, and Elu'hymn did eventually forsook them because of their continual backsliding, and because of their idolatry. Because they constantly were driven into whoredom, and also because of their constant bouts back into idolatry. And the kingdom of Israel, and the monarchy of Samaria and Jerusalem, and the kingdom of Judah, also called Wiyada'iyah, and the kingdom of Israel, that they were going to be dissolved. And also the descendants of Isaac and Jacob, who is also called Israel, was going to be dissolved. and the people of Israel were going to be forsaken by the Almighty Elu'hymn because of their whoredom and their idolatry in departing from Elu'hymn. Here is an excerpt from the prophet Amos and Hosea, Amos chapter 7 verse 8, and Elu'hymn the word said to me, Amos, what do you see? And I said, a plumb line. Then Elu'hymn said, behold, I Elu'hymn will set a plumb line in the midst of me, Elu'hymn and my people in Israel, and I will not again pass by them any more. And the high places of Isaac shall be desolate, and the sanctuaries of Israel shall be laid waste, and I Elu'hymn will raise up Ehud the seer, to be the king in all Israel. And he shall go up against the house of Jeroboam with the sword. For thus Elu'hymn, Amos you prophesied and say, this too, Jeroboam, Jeroboam shall die by the sword, and Israel shall surely be led away captive, out of their own land. And even from Jerusalem, and even from having the monarchy. Here is an excerpt from the prophet Hosea, Hosea chapter 1 verse 2, and in the beginning when Elu'hymn came, then Elu'hymn began to say to Hosea, Hosea, you go and you, take a wife who is a whore, and you take one from those who are from one of the tribe who are in whoredom, and you take a wife from the land which are committing whoredom, and your wife shall be from those whom have departed from Elu'hymn, whom is also called Elu'hymn. And who is the true sovereign one? Who is also called Elu'hymn. So Hosea went and took the blame from the sons of Gomer, and from the daughters of Ashkenaz, who then conceived and bare him a son. And then Elu'hymn said to him, call his name Israel. Because yet a little while, and I Elu'hymn will avenge the blood for all of His people, and for the blood of my people who are also called Israel, and I Elu'hymn will avenge Israel blood upon the house of Ehud. And I Elu'hymn Israel will cause their kingdom and their kings to cease, and also the heads of the houses of Israel shall also cease. And it shall come to pass in that day, that I Elu'hymn Israel will break their bows, and the weapons. And also the sword of Israel shall end in the valley of Israel. And a blame she conceived again, and she bare a daughter. And Elu'hymn said to him, call her by the name Lo-ruhamah, because I Elu'hymn will not have mercy no more upon the houses of Israel. But I Elu'hymn will utterly take them away. And they shall all go into captivity. But I Elu'hymn will have mercy upon the house of Judah, who is called Yah. And I Elu'hymn will save them by my holy name and by my great hand. And in the end I Elu shall gather a selected few, and I Elu shall establish my covenant with them. And I Elu'hymn will not save them by any bow, nor by any sword, nor by any battle, nor by horses, nor by horsemen. Now when Deblaim had weaned Lo-ruhamah, she conceived again and bare another son. Then Elu'hymn said to Hosea, call his name Lo-ammi, because they are not my people, and I will not be their sovereign. Yet even though the number of their children which are also called after my name Israel, they shall not be mine. Even though they shall be as the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered, they shall not be mine. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said to them, that they are not my people, you write there, it shall be said to them, that they are the sons of God, whom is called Gadriel, and the Canaanite god, Baal god, the destroyer, because they are not His chosen people, nor are they for Elu'hymn, whom He's called the Odd, and whom He's the only true sovereign one, and whom He's the everlasting living sovereign king. And then shall I Elu'hymn, the Holy One, who is called will begin to deliver the children of Judah who are called Yah, and whom are also from the true tribe of Israel. And in the last days Elu, whom is also called Israel, the true Israel, shall elect a holy people and new Girasolem. And Elu Israel shall gather them together, to the land where I Elu'hymn have appointed for them. And I Elu'hymn myself, who is called the Holy One, and the Almighty and Holy then I Elu'hymn shall be the only one, who shall be their head. and the only one, who shall be their sovereign king. And they shall come out of the lands of their whoredoms, and up to the new Elu'hymn, holy kingdom, and Iys holy Girasolem. Because it shall be great in the land of Israel in that day. And also so shall my holy kingdom. And also so shall my holy mountain be. And they shall behold the holy Mount Zion of Elu'hymn, at the coming of Elu'hymn. And the holy kingdom of the odd, in Iys earth in the end time. Friends, the true Jerusalem was first called Girasolem. So called because it was named after the twin sons of Esau, whom were called Jerush and Alam. And from inception of the city of Jerusalem, the city was first founded in Italy, and Samaria was in Syria, and Bethany was in England, which was also named Great Britain. And the city of Jerusalem was hidden, and Jerusalem was placed in Palestine in Tyre, which was city located in Lebanon, and later to Byblos, and then to Acre, which was determined to be part of the land of Palestine, and which fell into the hands of the newly established state of Israel, which was established in the year 1917, by the Balfour Declaration, when the League of Nations conspired to establish a nation-state called Israel. But before that time it is believed that the Jewish people had no land of their own, nor neither a nation of their own, not at least until the 1917 Balfour Treaty. In 2 Kings chapter 16 verse 6 it mentioned that the Jews were expelled from Eilat, which was sometimes pronounced Elath and Eluth. And sometime later, after 1951, when the Jews were in the land of Palestine, that they established a town named Eilat, no doubt to sell the ideal that Israel was at least living in that area of Palestine for some time, before they were expelled from there, according to 2 Kings chapter 16. But friends, before the 1917 Balfour Declarations, the Jews were dispersed in many other nations. And they lived in the old Soviet Republic, and also Poland, but particularly in the Eastern European cities. And also in North Africa before many emigrated to the USA. Friends, the biblical Hebrew nation has been abandoned. And the Jews have supplanted the biblical Hebrews. And the ancient Hebrews were the descendants of Abraham and the descendants of Israel, meaning Issachar, meaning Is the head of all the tribes of people. And who were called the Israelites. But the descendants of the Jews were called Israelis. Please be aware that this is a determined distinction between the Jews and the Hebrews people. Friends, even though the Hebrew nation has been disbanded and the descendants of the tribes have been scattered into the four corners of the world, the Sovereign One of heaven is coming back to gather Judah, and to establish His holy nation people, and set up His holy kingdom in His earth, and to reign in all the wicked nation them in the earth, and to vanquish Satan and establish His millennium kingdom reign in His earth. Hallelujah. He's coming. Because the only holy city would be Is, and it would be the only holy city in His earth. So let us be ready. So let it be. Amen. Thank you, to be continued the end.